What would you do with a 2-acre terrace garden on a beautiful Spanish hillside?
Somewhere under here is a path. Plants on this terrace on the other side of those olive trees cut through the corner. Probably need one of these. You can see from the field used to have a fair as it comes from. I'm really excited to be able to give you a first look at the 2 acres of land attached to the house. It's in the shape of a rectangle running down the slope in front of the house, and it's got 4 terraces across it with various trees and shrubs in between. Today I'm going to be cutting back a lot of that vegetation to make it all a bit more accessible for work in the coming months. First up, the top terrace. Phew. That was a morning of pretty hard work, summarised into a couple of minutes for you. But it's well worth the effort because I love seeing this area opened up and giving you the chance to dream about the possible designs for it. We'll be coming back up here later and I'll be talking about a couple of parts and definitely asking for your ideas of what you might do up here. So be ready with some suggestions. Now it's time to move on onto the path and onto the next terraces. Somewhere under here is a path and now I've got to find it. Yesterday was pretty hard work and my whole body is feeling a little bit sore, but there's a lot more to do, so I've got to keep pushing. And first up is this second terrace.
This terrace has probably experienced the most dramatic changes of all the land. For centuries, it would have looked like it did in this aerial photo from 1970. Then, about 20 years ago, 4 meters of earth was added in front of the house, turning this terrace into a slope. But 2 years ago, I decided to turn it back into a terrace like it was before.
Most of the plants on this terrace have grown up over the last 18 months, and come springtime they'll all be growing extremely quickly again. So I'm pretty relaxed about cutting them back pretty hard. A couple of plants I'm going to try and preserve though, and this is one of them. This is a yucca plant, and although I don't think I'm going to leave it here, it'd be quite nice to let it grow and maybe transplant it to somewhere else in the garden. You might have noticed that on this terrace I've been cutting all the tall cane plants back quite hard, but I've left these ones, and the reason for that is that I think they might be quite a useful natural feature in the future. Another plant that I've left is one in here. You won't be able to see it very well, but it's an iris, and they have beautiful purple flowers in the springtime. So if you like flowers, send me a reminder in a couple of months and I'll come down and show it to you. We're now on the other side of those cane plants, about 2 meters lower, and this is the level that this terrace was for a few hundred years, until about 20 years ago when the earth was added and completely buried the terrace. And when I bought the property, it basically looked like this slope here, and it was pretty impassable, and there was a 1 meter path around the edge where you could just about get through. So I was really keen to make some changes to it, to make it accessible and to make the most of this terrace again. And so after moving a lot of earth, this is the result, a terrace that was reborn. And after this morning's hard work clearing all the grass, you can see the results a little more clearly. I'm gonna have a break, get some food in, and then I'll finish tidying off this bank, and then we'll move on to the other parts of the garden. Now you've seen the second terrace and you've had a close-up of the slope above it. You might have some ideas about what you think I should do here. If you do, let me know in the comments below the video. One thing that I think I will build into this area, which I haven't actually pointed out to you, are the 4 or 5 olive trees on the bank below. They're fairly unkept at the moment, but with a bit of work they might produce some olives. But that's probably a story for another day. Now I'm going to move on onto the path again and show you the bottom terraces. This beautiful third terrace is quite a bit bigger than the 2 above it, and not even I'm crazy enough to try and cut this back by hand after 2 hard days of work. Of all the terraces, this one's probably changed the least. It's always been very flat and it's always had the trees all around it, so it opens up all sorts of design options. The big question for you is, what do you suggest I do with this terrace? The one bit of work that I did do on this third terrace was to cut through the corner here to extend the path through the trees and down to the 4th and bottom terrace. And that's what I'm going to show you now. This part of the garden has some lovely trees and a very nice shaded path, but you probably need one of these to be able to walk along it. I last cut this path a couple of years ago, and as you can see from these saplings, everything grows pretty quickly and it can all get quite overgrown very fast. So if you were to use this space, you need to keep maintaining it and cutting back the undergrowth. But it might be worth it because there's some very nice trees in here, the majority of which are oak trees, of which there are a couple of types. One is a holm oak, which this is an example of, and the other type is a cork oak here. Anyway, it's quite a nice space, but the path at the moment is quite overgrown, so now we'll head back to the other path. Right, next up, I'll finish off this last bit of path and then show you the fourth and final terrace. Whew. Fourth terrace is by quite a long way the biggest, and this is a field that probably shouldn't be cut with a strimmer, but I just couldn't resist it. The reason for the fairly pronounced difference between this half of the terrace and this half of the terrace is that the field used to have a fairly pronounced slope, and when I was doing the work clearing the earth up above, I came down here and leveled out the field to improve the options for how we might be able to use it. On this side is where we hit the bedrock, and it's just taking a little bit longer for the plants to recover naturally. The final thing I wanted to show you on this terrace is my favourite tree on all my land, and it's that great big cork tree in the corner. Let's take a closer look. Cork trees can grow much larger than this, but this is the biggest one on my land. And if you've ever wondered where the cork that goes in the top of your bottle comes from, the answer is it comes from bark of trees like this. This is one of the boundaries of my land, and if you climb up this part, it gives you a good idea of what the slope would have looked like before the terraces were put in. This is the top of the second terrace that I showed you earlier, and it is possible to walk up that very steep bit of slope there. But I think I'll walk around this way and see you back at the house. So back where we started, having shown you the 4 terraces and the land below the house. I'm now going to give you a bit of a flyby reminder of what you've seen. That'll include some of my ideas, but please think about what you would do. Now you've seen all the land and you've seen some of my ideas about what I might do in each part. And I hope it's given you a really good idea about why I'm almost as excited about the garden and the land as I am about the house. I'm sure you've got some good ideas about what you would do with the land, and I would love to hear your suggestions and maybe even build them into my designs. So please do add some comments below the video. One final idea that relates to a personal favourite of mine is to have an area on this top terrace where I can play some petanque. Oof.